guys, thanks for coming on today. I'm actually really excited to have both Gregor and Klaus on to do a video on this. So there's been a recent development with a new external tool that I've had a chance to use, the Measure Killer, which is really useful, I think, in addition to like MK Feldman's tool and a few others that kind of help do audit and cleanup of modeling. I know it's, for me, definitely, there's a pain point when you're often handed a report and like fix this and clean it up, and you need to figure out where the dead ends or the fat that can be cut off the model that's no longer used to speak. So having something where you can click a few buttons and have it automatically do this for you is really useful, I think, as a fundamental tool to have for development, especially when you have the model that keeps getting passed around to different developers, or even one that you built for a few years. And you just want to make sure that maybe there is a time where you edited a report page, you forgot to delete the measure that was no longer used with some of those. So I'm very excited to have both of you on to showcase this. But also, I know it's the first time that you've been on, both of you have been on the channel, so I'd love it if you guys could give an introduction about yourselves. Gregor, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Thanks for having us on, Reed. Yeah, my name is Gregor. I started Brunner BI about 2 years ago, and we're a small team of Power BI developers. And basically, a few months ago, we started building this tool for internal use first, but then we kind of figured that it's actually quite good, and we thought maybe we can improve it a little bit and then share it with the community.
Excellent, glad to hear.
Hello, thank you, Reed, for having us. I'm Klaus. I'm a senior Power BI developer at Brunner BI, and yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here and be able to talk about Measure Killer. Thank you.
Absolutely. I want to say love the shirt, by the way. Huge Floyd fan.
Thank you. Yes, I am.
Yeah, perfect. But yeah, I think we're good to go. If we want, I can flip over the screen and we can get started walking through this external tool. Okay, I can see your screen now.
Okay, this is a very simple showcase report we built to put it on our website, and I'll be showing you a quick view of how Measure Killer works. So basically, it's an external tool. As you can see here, if you download in our website, you can have free access to it. And if it's basically you open it, and it was designed to be very quick and very easy to use. So you just have the port number here. You just have to click on run, and then you can select the latest Power BI reports you have open, as you can see here. Usually the one you have open last will be the one, but yeah, I have to choose this one since it's not the last one that I've opened. And then you just click on run, and you have the unused columns and unused measures in the table to the right. You can also click show all, as you can see here, and then the unused measures and columns will appear in red. There's an option to plot here, and what I'm showing here is actually the newest version. We just released it today, so we have more features than the previous versions. And the coolest one of them is that we don't have to create a C# script anymore and use tabular editor to delete the measures. Now, Measure Killer, now Measure Killer will do that for us with a C# script as well, but it's embedded on Measure Killer. We call it Tabular Killer. Yeah, just for the sake of it, keeping the name straight. And yeah, now we can select between, of course, the old. We only have one unused measure in this report, is year-over-year profit. And we can use the old C# script for tabular editor, of course. We can select which measures we want to delete, or we can kill all. And once we click on kill all measures, then tabular killer will appear, and the unused measures will be removed. And the table to the right will be updated as well. We added this feature on our newest version.
So there's, I was going to say, with some of the measures, a couple questions that I have with those is because I initially started to use the model cleanup in Tabular Editor back in the day, due to the limitations of what can be exposed in the report, and the way that it connects to it. I know that it would identify a column, or a measure as unused if the only place it was used was in the visual, filters on this visual in the filters pane. And if it was used nowhere else, it would still identify that as you should go ahead and delete this. I know, with NMK's like cleaner tool, that was able to identify that. But if you had a measure in the model that is only used either A, in the filters on this visual, in like a single visual filter, or B, it was just used for conditional formatting using field values, would this identify that measure as unused, or would it correctly identify that it was still being used somewhere in the model?
If the measure is used anywhere in the model, it will be found as and shown
Okay.
as used. It doesn't matter where it is, if it is on the report layout or inside the calculated column, another measure, calculated table, anything. It will be found.
Okay,
This is
good,
our
good.
major priority. Don't have false positives. So basically, we don't want to have false positives, saying that something is not
Yeah.
used and it is used. That's why we have some limitations, of course. We have some limitations. One of them is if you use some special characters, and we have it on our website. I cannot remember exactly right now which special characters. We can show you to you later, of course. But yeah, as far as we are concerned, there's no false positives so far.
Okay, that's good. Does it? So I'm assuming is it just looking at the model metadata, and basically the JSON file, or does it have an ability at all to look at any of the query plans that are being executed for the visual to see if a visual is using it?
That's a very good question. Well, we are actually creating a report. I will show you how it works. So I have this I will have this. I have the sales report that I just show you here, and once I show the written items, I can see that we have a temp file. Inside this temp file, we have the metadata, of course, and in this folder called report, we have the layout. Within this layout it's a huge JSON file where all the visuals, filters, conditional formatting, everything is stored there, and I can search for using the right JSON keys, and I can find everything there. This is
Excellent.
one of the approaches we have to find the used measures and columns. The other approach, we are looking into the model itself, the DMV tables, the tabular model per se. So we in the tabular model, we can find if a measure is used in a calculated column, in another measure, in relationships, and basically everything that involves the model. So we merge them. We merge these two information sources, and then we can find if a measure or a column is used or not.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, so there are a couple of limitations, but I think since we listed them on the website and they're not they're not that often, I think that they come up, like maybe if you have a comma in the column name or something, it's quite rare, I would say, or a hyphen. Those are some of the limitations. But I think otherwise, as far as we know, of course, it's looking pretty good, but we're still in beta, right? We just released 0.8 now. We're still looking to get more feedback from the community. We're looking for bugs, and we would be glad to find some.
Exactly. Like it's like crowdsourcing with a lot of this stuff really goes a long way to finding that, because you have to throw it against a lot of models with complexities, and that the nuances really come out for that. Like I know a couple years ago I helped MK with her cleaner tool. Same thing is, until you throw this at like dozens, if not hundreds of models, you're not going to get every possible combination of a way a model can be structured and a visuals can be structured to probably get those outliers and exceptions to really I would say, unique ways that people are building out a report page or something like that.
I
Exactly.
totally agree.
We had in the last version, we had still one limitation that we were not aware of, which was columns used only in incremental refresh. And one guy made us aware of this, and now we were able to fix it. But we didn't have an incremental refresh in one of our test data sets. So yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Exactly, but we still need a bigger sample of reports. We have a limited number of reports that we can test, measure killer, and we've been sending out to friends. And of course, now with the open beta, more people will give us feedback. But still, long way to go. There's always something that we forgot to add, or a logic, a hidden logic. Like the incremental refresh was very specific. It's a date time column only used in the incremental refresh and not used anywhere else. We couldn't find that, and with version 0.8 now we can find it.
Fair enough. Perfect.
Also, I think what might be interesting for people is that we put in some little features that maybe are not that visible, like if you mark a table as a date table, for example, Measure Killer will realize that. Maybe you can show that, Klaus.
Yeah, of course.
And also local date tables will not be considered at all. We just thought in case there are some people who are still committing those crimes, we don't wanna delete the stuff there and mess up the model somehow. But the normal, if you mark a table as a date table, Measure Killer will recognize that and will even show a little icon in this list of, yeah, exactly, in this little table. Maybe you can show that.
Sorry. One. Now it goes away because nobody wants to remove a table for a column from the calendar table. So when it's a calendar table, a date table, we'll be showing like this little calendar icon next to it, as you can see here. It's the,
yeah.
Here you go. And of course, the biggest challenge from my point of view is the columns. They are even harder to figure out if they are used or not, because you can use them in some very specific ways in Power Query. For example, for joins, nested joins, we can call it, I guess, merges. If they are only used on merges in Power Query, at first it was really hard to find because we had to kind of read the Power Query code, like create our own compiler version of the M code, so we can really find where the columns are used in Power Query in the M code. And in addition to that, we added this M code to kill columns because we cannot remove columns using the same method as we use to remove measures. We have to remove them on Power Query. For example, we have to go here, click, and delete from model. So when you click there, a step is created in Power Query, removing that column, as you probably know. And we had to kind of create our own way of doing that. So what we added is this option of M code to kill columns. This M code is simply reading the query, the M code from all the queries, and added an extra step at the end called columns removed by Measure Killer, and then we remove all of the unused columns. So if you go here, you can choose the table, and next to it, we are seeing how the memory saved by removing the unused columns.
Yeah, and that's basically still something that we improve, right? Because that's something that the user still has to do. And the measures, they go away automatically now, which also had not happened in the earlier version. But the M code is still kind of a copy-paste job for users to basically replace their M code with what they get here. And they have to do this table by table. And that's, of course, not ideal. And we have tried to automate that, but so far it has not worked.
Small steps, right? To slowly continue to upgrade this.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe this will be a feature that we can add on the alpha release. That would be cool too.
No, this is great though. I think that the fact that you can do this both for measures and columns is paramount for sure. And like the instant savings to be able to, you know, to do this and snap your fingers and then save like 30% of model size is really nice.
Exactly. That's why we are trying to focus on the columns right now, because measures, of course, will have a cleaner report, easier to read. Unused measures will be out. But the model size is all about the columns. The data is stored in columns, not in measures. So
I was going to say as one idea, and it's not really a killer, but it's almost similar to like maybe a modeling best practice. If you could actually identify like repeating patterns, let's assume there's 10 measures that all are calculate, measure name, date, add, prior month. Basically, there's 15 prior month calculations that are repeats. If there's a way to maybe identify, oh, these 35 characters are showing over and over and over again, we recommend you probably should, you know, a suggestion, turn this into a calculation group. Having like a kind of a flag of, we noticed you probably could have 10 measures with these 100 measures that you've built. So like almost like a step 2 of a suggestion, but I could envision that as something that also could be really useful because in a way you're killing measures still by doing that. You're just changing the logic from unique measures in the model into repeatable calculations.
Right. Yeah, I mean, actually, it's a good point. We're actually discussing this in the team right now. If we want to go more into a direction of best practice, like similar to like a best practice analyzer, right? In Tabular Editor, to maybe build some logic like that. And that's a good point. Actually, what we thought about, and maybe we can also get your idea on this, is you know, the number of visuals on a page is also kind of interesting, right? And isn't there this I've seen it somewhere on the internet that you can like a card gets like, I don't know, 1 or 2 points, and then matrix has more, and then you have like a maximum number of points per page or something. I'm sure you've seen this.
And it's, you know, there's always kind of a rule of thumb with a lot of that, but it's, you know, you do want to avoid number of unique visuals on a page for sure, right. Just because the containers always take time. So it's, you know, it's using certain visuals or other stuff that can help combine stuff, and then the number of unique points onto a page as well for performance, with wanting to avoid, you know, 1,000 measures splattered everywhere. Like tooltips, I think, is the worst perpetrator. A lot of people just think they're free. They don't calculate until you hover. Like, well, no, they're pre-calculated. But yeah, all those little nuances and considerations that go into, you know, does it look pretty, but also does it run fast?
Right. Yeah, and we have this plot function in here, which is still very basic. I mean, we have no way to. It's super ugly compared to anything in Power BI, but that's the best Python or whatever we're using here can do so far. And we just thought maybe it would be cool to have like some kind of distribution of visuals per page. And then maybe we can say, okay, you have 30 visuals on this page, and hey, maybe you should be careful there, or we can put a warning or something, or also pie charts, right? We played around with some kind of memes that, how dare you use 3 pie charts or something like this, you know, some kind of funny things to put in there.
Exactly.
And we have actually the data for it. We just added in our new version 0.8 the new results option, and on the row by row report we can see all the where for example, if a measure is used in a pie chart, it will be shown there line by line, pie charts in this page with this visual ID, this kind of visual, of course, and everything basically, relationships. It's like a full detailed report of your report. You can even build, I guess, a Power BI report of your own report using the row by row report. And of course, we have the old version. The cluster report will be one line for each measure and column,
Oh,
and
excellent.
everything
Okay.
will be
Yeah.
concatenated. So there are these two options you can choose with. The user can choose.
Yeah,
And
this is completely new in 0.8 now, because we also got some feedback that some people want to use it just for analytics, like they just want to see where stuff is used, which page. They want to find out some, especially the complex reports, right? I mean, nobody knows really where things are used, and that way, before, in this more simple Excel report that we can generate, we basically had, I think, one line of code for every artifact, and then it would show up that, okay, you used it here, 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 and here. And now we have like a row by row basis, and it's maybe better to filter and really, it gives you a better overview of where those artifacts are used, and you get basically multiple entries for every usage. On basically means one visual or on this page or whatever.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Nice report
You know,
too.
we're also still experimenting, like if it's gonna be used more for this, or people are more gonna use it for this analytics part basically. So we're just going with the feedback what we're getting from the community, and then try to make it happen somehow.
Yeah, another important point, you can give us feedback if you just click on give. You click on the give feedback box, and then you can write something to us so we can. Sorry about that. I have. And then you can just write something. You see that we have some comments here, and we usually reply, and I've been reading all of them and trying to implement whatever is very interesting. Not everything, of course, but what is doable, I would say. And yeah, thank you. I wanted to thank all of the users that took the time and gave us the feedback. It's really useful. Yeah, please feel free to.
And we're getting
good call out with those too. Go ahead.
Sorry, what?
I was just saying, good call out on the user feedback. I mean, anything that can encourage people to continually provide feedback is always welcome, because it, as you know, like getting that feedback, especially with bugs or just comments and suggestions, is paramount to getting a well-built product.
Exactly. I mean, first we kind of just built it for ourselves, but then, I mean, what's the point of investing so much time and not sharing it with the community? And now we're just trying to channel all that feedback on the website, in the blog, in the comment section of the blog, actually, because we're also getting some stuff on LinkedIn, and then maybe some emails and Slack, right? So yeah.
Exactly. Perfect.
Yeah, it all started actually as a big Python script. We were just trying to clean up a client report. It was huge. It was one of our colleagues that suggested, and then we started playing around, and everything started growing, and we actually just started developing it. And now, yeah, we are in open beta. That's really, really exciting.
Yeah, and thank you for showing all this. I certainly have this installed as a another one of my corner essential pieces. I've I think now my most commonly used ones probably are, it's Tabular Editor, DAX Studio. Bravo certainly has a lot of really useful features as well. I've found its column detection is a little inconsistent at times though. Granted, I haven't actually tested the column detector probably in about 3 months, but earlier in the year when it was first released, I feel like there were a couple false positives with that one, but I would assume that one's gotten better. But I do like that this also covers the measures, so this would be another really useful one. And I mean, it pretty much, each time I get a new model from a client where they're like, "Hey, clean this up, make it smaller," I'm going to open this and just immediately, gut the columns and measures, because I don't think I've ever been handed a model from a client that needed improvement that did not have a bunch of measures and columns that were unused, It's still one of my favorite success stories. I did it as just one sharing, a bit of sharing. I was in California about 4 years ago, and I was on an on-site with a client who had like a 2.5 gigabyte file. They had a 45 million row fact table with a column, and it's technically used because they were doing a count A against it, but it was a row ID on 45 million rows. So like, well, what's that for? Oh, we need an order count. Okay, so every row is an order. Do you display this number anywhere? Well, no, we just wanted to count the column. Okay, so you can do a count rows on the table. Let's watch what happens when we delete this column. And it went from like 2.5 to I think like 900 megabytes instantly, just like in about 30 seconds. And it's just when you can snap your finger like that and just instantly save so much space, it like you can watch the jaws drop and the minds blow up a little bit. Like, we could save that much space on our file by just getting rid of a column. Like, yeah, unique values are painful, but these kind of things that lets people quickly get wins and clean up, I think, is very useful to have in the community. One last question that I'll pass to you, and I'm sure I know the answer, but when you have a data set that is a shared data set, so there's a lot of live connections to this, like I'm going to guess with every other tool, this included, like there's not really any easy way to do unused measure detection when you have a bunch of other reports connected to it, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
Yep.
That's one of the trickiest, most problematic problems we have to solve.
Yep.
Now we cannot do that. We only work report by report. Measure Killer only works, report by report. If it's shared, if you have a live connection, it won't work. Because in a sense, you have to have all of the reports that use that data set open at the same time, and to analyze all the, not open at the same time, but you need all of them open at the same time, because you have to analyze the tabular model. And then you have to select all of the files to search for all of the measures in all of the visuals, filters, conditional formatting everywhere. So we basically have to select all of them. And if the user forget one single report, then we can have false negatives. And we are basically saying that specific measure is not used, but it is used somewhere in one of the reports that we forgot to add to the measure killer. So that's really problematic. We don't know yet how we are going to solve.
I can imagine two ways. I think, well, one, as you mentioned, like, let's just assume there's 5 reports connected to it. If you could have the lean reports, just like you have 6 files, the data set and the lean reports, if you just had all 5 of them, you downloaded a copy of them, they're in a folder, you basically can just, point to that folder to say, these are the report files, here's the data set. You identify that with the UI and it does your scan. At that point, the errors are not as beholden to the person to select, as you said, to select the right report. So as long as the right reports are selected, it will run correctly. They just have to do that properly. Or curiously, is if somebody had premium and they had XMLA read from all of the workspaces, I would wonder, would there be a way to connect to the Power BI tenant and from a pick list, like select report A, B, and C, basically then just query them to get the data out of there. I'm not sure if all that information can be extracted for XMLA, but I could imagine those two scenarios could be two possible ways to collect the information of what's used from those multiple reports to then do the analysis on.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I mean, if you really can basically tell an analysis tool which ones are the live reports, where's the data set, and somehow it can put all of this information together, maybe it can work.
Yeah, I will say that for enterprise clients, if that tool could be built, that tool could also be sold for a lot of money for a lot of those enterprise clients, because nothing exists today to do that. Like, the only way that I can actually clean up a data set with connected reports is, this is like when there's 10 reports or less. I will quite literally open the files up and I'll create new tabs in the data set. I copy and paste the visuals between them to reproduce, like, let's assume there's 50 report pages across like 5 reports. I'll spend an hour doing that. Then I run an analyzer against that one like temp file that I've saved, which essentially now has the exhaustive list of all the visuals from all the pages that possibly could have been used. Granted, that also doesn't even include filter pane filters. So I basically have to recombine everything myself. It's a painful process, but also when there's an enterprise model that has, taken 6 months to build and they want to clean it up, a day's work to do this does still pay off to help consolidate it, but it is really painful. And by the time you have like 60 report, like it's impossible, you can't do it. It is not maintainable at scale. So I'm hoping someday someone, Microsoft, you guys otherwise, like does build some tool that can accommodate for the shared data set scenario. Because I think that will become a cornerstone for enterprise clients. Like really small businesses that have 10 reports, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But when you have the data set with 100 reports connected to it, the only way forward with that most of the time is you have to just keep building onto it. You really can't ever delete something from that model anymore, just due to the nature of you have no idea what it's going to affect.
True.
Yeah.
And in those scenarios, you really have to go through Premium and XMLA, I think, because that's the ultimate way to really find out. I mean, even if you pull all of those in a folder, it's a mess. It's hard to do, right?
And I think most of the time that someone's going to have a data set with 100 reports connected to it in that like large scenario, there's probably a large overlap of those clients with Power BI Premium already. So there's a good chance they will have that available to, as you said, the UI, you just connect to the service, you pick the data set and you pick the reports, and it does, it pulls the data in and runs, whatever analysis it needs to.
Yeah. And I mean, just that there are these tools out there is a failure of Microsoft in a way that they just have not provided anything in this case, right?
They build the feature usually a few years before they build the ability to monitor the feature. It's I feel like that's just with a lot of products in general. The administration and governance usually comes after a feature gets released, because then you realize, oh, this is how the environments actually look with this new thing deployed. Now we need to figure out how to maintain and check it and keep the complexity at a minimum. I do know Microsoft is coming out with a bunch of new administration and governance stuff, and some new admin portals and metric statistics, but it's still a long way to go. And it's why companies like Purple Frog with Power BI Sentinel exist, that I still recommend to a lot of clients, because it has 100 features that I wish the Microsoft portal, for Power BI had built into it for so many of these different things, and trimming the fat, so to speak, at a tenant level.
Right.
Yeah, but thank you guys so much for coming on. As we're wrapping up, was there anything else you wanted to show or talk about related to the external tool?
No, I would just encourage everyone to try it out. Create backups. We cannot guarantee anything yet. It's still a work in progress. Yeah, if you like it, let us know. Find something.
Exactly. And all the links and everything to download this, try it out, and everything are down in the description. Their contact info is down there as well for submitting feedback or anything else. So I encourage you all to reach out to them as needed, download this and try it out. But otherwise, thank you both so much for coming on and showing this. I'm certainly glad that this tool exists now. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, or share this video. Plus, if you have any comments for a future video, go ahead and add that to the comment section down below. Now, if this is your first time to my channel, or you want to see more of these awesome videos, please click that subscribe and notification button. Also, feel free to show your support by becoming a channel member.